Hey everyone, and welcome to Throne Talk. On today's episode, I'll be giving my thoughts on some of the possible whereabouts of the surviving members of Robb Stark's command group from the War of the Five Kings. I'll also be giving a quick rundown of how the beginning of the war unfolded on the show for both the Starks and the Lannisters. Before I start, just a general spoiler warning if you're not caught up through the Season 4 finale, or if you don't want to know some small happenings from the books. Okay, let's get started. After Catelyn Stark takes Tyrion Lannister hostage, believing him to be responsible for the assassination attempt on her son Bran, Tywin Lannister retaliates by sending the Mountain and a small force of men to the Riverlands, Catelyn's homeland. The Mountain's men pillage and burn the countryside, destroying the villages and homes of the common people, and leaving behind only a sack of fish as a warning. When the commoners travel to King's Landing to seek justice, Hand of the King Ned Stark orders Beric Dondarrion to assemble a force of 100 men and to travel to the Mountain's castle and put him to death in the name of King Robert. Beric and his men, however, were caught off guard when the Mountain came up from behind them, as if he was somehow expecting their arrival, and killed Dondarrion and a large portion of his men. In the battle's aftermath, Dondarrion is resurrected by the Red Priest Thoros of Myr, and the two of them go on to form the Brotherhood Without Banners. While this was going on, the Lannisters had mobilized 60,000 of their men in the Westerlands, with half of them, around 30,000, given to the command of Jaime, while the other half were under the direct command of Tywin. Jaime's forces struck first by crushing the Riverlords at the Battle of the Golden Tooth, and then moved further east and eventually laid siege to the Tully castle, Riverrun. Jaime's victories and the Mountain's pillaging allowed Tywin and his men to move into the Riverlands essentially unimpeded. But after Robb tricked the Lannisters by giving false information to a scout, Jaime was captured and his men were later obliterated when they were caught sleeping during a surprise attack. With Jaime's forces gone, Riverrun was freed up and the Riverlords joined the Stark cause. First up, Greatjon Umber. Last seen in the Season 1 finale, when he was the first person to proclaim Robb Stark the King in the North, the Greatjon has been missing from the action for a while, but that doesn't mean he's out of the game. One of the extra features on HBO's Season 2 Blu-ray was a guide to the War of the Five Kings, and in it we learned some of what the Greatjon had been doing since we last saw him. The guide explains that after Riverrun was freed, Robb split his army, leading the majority of the Stark forces in an invasion of the Westerlands, as we see on the show, while he tasked the Greatjon to take command of the rest of his forces, with the goal of expelling any Lannister men that had taken up residence in the castles of the Riverlords. As for Season 3, we don't know exactly what the Greatjon was up to, but thanks to one of the head writers on the show, we do know that he was not present at the Red Wedding, and more than likely he was still completing his mission in the Riverlands at that time. They never make a point of this on the show, but it makes sense to me that once Robb traveled back to the twins for his uncle's wedding, he probably would have sent some of his men off to join the Greatjon's forces, since they wouldn't be needed at a wedding with their new Frey allies. Once the Greatjon began freeing up more and more castles, he would have wanted to set up a base of operations, and what better than Riverrun, the regional capital. In the books, after the events of the Red Wedding, the Freys and the Iron Throne send men to recapture and accept oaths of fealty from the Riverlords, but they are met with resistance, and a second siege of Riverrun begins. It's possible that it will be the Greatjon and his men who bunker down and suffer through this siege on the show. Once he learned of the Red Wedding and the Freys dispatching men throughout the lands, the Greatjon and his men would be in desperate need of shelter and allies. It's unlikely that he would be able to get back to the north due to increased Ironborn presence, and Roose Bolton being named Warden of the North. One possibility is that he could seek refuge with the Brotherhood Without Banners, because by freeing the Riverland villages from Lannister occupation, the Greatjon was technically abiding by the Brotherhood's code of protecting the small folk, and we know that at least some of their members were at one time loyal to the Starks, so it's not too hard to reason that he could find shelter with them. When Tywin takes his men to the Battle of the Blackwater, he leaves the Mountain in charge of the remaining forces at Harrenhal, with orders to find and destroy the Brotherhood Without Banners. But once the Mountain learns that Robb Stark was headed his way, he flees and sets up a new camp by the stone mill, burning the countryside as he goes. Depending on what route the Mountain traveled after being defeated by Edmure Tully at the Battle of the Stone Mill, and also depending on where the Greatjon went after he freed up the castles of Stonehenge and Raventree Hall, it's possible that the two commanders could have engaged each other in a battle at some point. The show's writers did state that the Greatjon wasn't captured at the Red Wedding, but who's to say he wasn't captured by the Mountain's forces or Frey forces and brought to Casterly Rock or the Twins, where he's being held as prisoner, similar to his fate in the books. I think this is the least likely option of his whereabouts though, because the writer makes it seem like we'll be hearing from the Greatjon again, and since Walder Frey will not be back this season, we won't be visiting the Twins, and we probably won't be visiting Casterly Rock either, unless it's in a flashback scene. Next up is Maege Mormont and Galbart Glover. Just like the Greatjon, the last time we saw the aunt of Ser Jorah Mormont and the master of Deepwood Mott was in the Season 1 finale. It's been confirmed that Maege Mormont was not at the Red Wedding on the show, and judging by how Galbart Glover is shown standing or sitting right next to her in literally every scene that he's in, I don't think he was there either. Also, since we know that even Roose Bolton had trouble traveling to the north due to Ironborn presence, I don't think Maege Mormont went home to Bear Island, nor do I think that Galbart Glover returned home to Deepwood Mott, especially since his castle had been captured by Theon's sister. Like I mentioned earlier, when Robb was marching back to the Twins, or perhaps even when he first split his forces after breaking Jaime's siege of Riverrun, it's possible these two commanders were sent to join the Greatjon's forces. It could be that they're holding up in Riverrun with him, or perhaps they're also hanging out with the Brotherhood, but another possibility is that they are holding one of the other castles of the Riverlords, such as Raventree Hall. The location of these two characters in particular is as much a mystery on the show as it is on the books. During his march to Edmure's wedding, Robb stopped at a small village to lay out his future battle plan, which was to recapture Moat Cailin from the Ironborn by enlisting the help of Howland Reed, one of Ned's old friends and the father of Jojen and Mira. Since the swampy waters of the Neck are so dangerous to traverse, and since Howland's castle is built atop a moving island, Robb instructed Maege and Galbart to take two separate vessels into the swamps to increase their chances of finding him. Their mission was to ask Howland to provide Robb and his men secret passages into the north through the swamps, allowing the Starks to surprise the Ironborn as the Freys and Boltons were attacking them from the south and west. Now of course none of this is remotely mentioned on the show, and by all means Robb's next move was to try and take Casterly Rock, but the Lannisters still outnumbered him, and he could use all the help he could get if he was to attack the Rock. Howland Reed was most likely at his castle of Greywater Watch at some point between Season 1 and mid-Season 3, because Jojen mentions how he told his father of Ned's death and saw him cry in reaction to this. There's a lot of theories about Howland, and he has a pretty interesting character, but if we ever see him, I have the feeling one of these two might be with him. Seemingly the only person on the Stark side who had a good time at the Red Wedding, Edmure was last seen being escorted to the bedding ceremony with his new wife, Rosalind Frey. However, we later learned that he actually spent the night in the Frey dungeon. Edmure's the only loyal commander whose location we actually know at this point, but since Walder Frey is not coming back for Season 5, and given certain changes that the show is making from the books, I don't think we can say Edmure will be leaving the dungeons anytime soon, and therefore we may not be seeing him for a while. Famous for being the guy who knows exactly the right moment when to get up to take a piss, the Blackfish escaped the Red Wedding by going outside to relieve himself just before the massacring began. The Blackfish was not even at the Red Wedding in the books, but his story as we know it ends with him escaping from a hostile situation, so in my opinion his story on the show is caught up with the books and he will not be returning to the Riverlands. So here's my thoughts on where he could be headed. We've seen quite a few shots of the Knights of the Vale out and about in the Season 5 trailer and the site teasers. Given that Brynden is the great-uncle of Lord Robb and Arryn, and the Lords of the Vale have privately declared that they do not support the damned Lannisters, if the Blackfish was ever to reach the Bloody Gate, I believe he would be let in. As Littlefinger looks to convince Sansa to seek revenge for the murders of her loved ones, and possibly even begins to formulate a plan to attack the Freys or Boltons, having a great military mind like the Blackfish at his side would be of great advantage to him, especially since the Iron Throne will be distracted with other matters this season. Whiteharp has been mentioned briefly a few times on the show, most recently by Maester Aemon in his eulogy to the Fallen Knights Watch Brethren, but the size and power of the city have not yet been established on screen. However, one of the DVD extras explains that White Harbor is a prosperous fishing and trading port, and the ruling house, the Manderleys, are the richest family in the north. Judging by how HBO specifically made sure to show Wendell Manderley wearing his merman brooch being killed at the Red Wedding, I think we're being set up for the appearance of the Manderleys in full force in future seasons. In the books, Wendell's father, Lord Wyman Manderly, is outraged at the Freys and Lannisters because of the events of the Red Wedding, but in public, he acts as if he's loyal to the throne. In secret, Wyman begins working with one of Robb's former commanders that had been misplaced during the war to form a plan to get some of the Northmen to side with Stannis' forces to defeat the Boltons and Freys. Since family is one of the Blackfish's main values, I think he would be keen on joining with the Manderlys and killing some Freys to help rescue his nephew Edmure from Lord Walder. Though a stretch, I also believe it's possible that some of the other commanders I've mentioned, Maege, Galbart, Howland, and possibly even the Greatjon, could also end up joining forces with Manderly and going along with their plan to fight with First Stannis. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Let me know in the comments what are some of your theories on the whereabouts of these characters on the show. Also, I know this channel's been growing pretty fast lately, but I haven't forgot about it. I've got some plans I'm working on for future videos. It's just trying to find the free time to get them finished that's the hard part. Anyways, as always, leave your suggestions for future videos, and hit subscribe for more Throne Talk.